Hello everyone, Holly Kerwin here, Director and Principal Psychologist of Northside Psychology. Bit of a late one today. I'm actually heading out to dinner and realised that I had forgotten to do my live stream and didn't have enough time, so I'm doing it in the car while my husband drives. Better late than never, and I've committed to the month, so that's it, I've got to do it. Today I thought I'd talk a little bit about needle phobias and phobias in general. Just briefly, I was thinking today as I was hiking, and I went to do it this morning, but I didn't have good reception where I was, so I delayed it. But I was thinking about, right, what do I say? What if I miss something? The reality is this is not a university lecture. This is completely unscripted, and I might miss something, but I'm just going to talk generally. And I realized, when I took the pressure off myself, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? This is what we all do in life, isn't it? When we take a little bit of that pressure off ourselves and we just decide, right, we're just going to go for it and progress over perfection and take massive imperfect action, that we can actually get stuff done. And it doesn't matter. I mean, the scope of this is around being able to assist people who are worried about having to have a vaccination for coronavirus. And lots of people are in this boat. So, I'm just going to talk generally about needle phobias and generally around some of the things that we as clinicians can do when we're treating needle phobias. And when I was walking this morning, I thought as well, why do I need to prepare for this really in my head? Because most of the time clients come in and I don't really know why they're coming until they arrive. Sometimes I'll get a treatment plan from a doctor and it just says, please provide opinion and management for anxiety, and they come in and they've got full-blown phobias or generalized anxiety disorder or panic disorder, all sorts of things. And the first thing I do is take a really good history so that I can get my head around what is happening for that person and what it is that we're actually needing to do to be able to assist them. So, that's developing a case conceptualization with them, getting my head around what is happening, how this problem has developed over time, what's happening that's sustaining and maintaining the problem, what's perpetuating the problem, and, times when it hasn't been so bad, things that they've done differently that have helped, understanding safety behaviours and avoidance behaviours, especially when, with anxiety, because those are some of the things that maintain it, and so on. So, I've been around the traps for a while, and I can, work with someone who just walks in and we start to, understand and unpack what's happening. And I don't have a script that I follow, when it comes to talking about, these are the things that we're going to be doing, which I always discuss with people, towards the end of that first session, so that they have a good understanding of what's going to happen, what we're aiming to do. So that realization in itself is quite liberating, because I'm just going to talk generally about, what I would talk to a client about if they came in and had a needle phobia and were really worried about, the upcoming vaccinations that many of us are facing. So, the first thing that I always do when I'm dealing with people who come in with anxiety is to talk to them about the mechanics of anxiety. I really find that that's one of the most important things that people need to know to be able to get their head around what's happening. Because what we want to do is understand what's happening in the body, understand what some of those symptoms are, understand what is actually perpetuating the problems, and then people have actually a lot more power, good power, to be able to make choices and interact with those situations differently, to drive them differently, to get a better outcome. So, so I talk a lot about the fight or flight response, and I talk about how these things develop over time, and how the brain wires, because it's fired together in a particular way so many times, so how it wires together to strengthen this anxiety response as a way of being able to help us survive. Okay, so the brain is misfiring a lot of the time when these things are happening. Phobias are an irrational fear, you know, and a very, you know, a large, so an excessive and persistent fear. Okay, the brain is thinking that it's helping you survive an imminent threat, but in fact it's misfiring in that situation. And so so that over time, with experiences that keep compounding that kind of reaction, what happens is that it becomes more hair triggered, and so even after a while, even the thought of having a needle is really, really, really scary for people. And people can often feel foolish in this situation. You know, we have lots of, you know, obviously very rational adults, you know, very capable rational adults who then feel really freaked out about the fact that they're going to have to face their fear. Oh, that sun is right in my face now. So they then feel extremely embarrassed about this situation, and you know, that drives more avoidance behaviour. It drives more thinking that's not going to be so helpful. It can create more stress because they might think, oh, it's going to be so embarrassing going in there, and so on, and things just keep compounding and compounding. So so a huge part of what we need to do is just get our head around what is happening there, to understand it, so that we can have some choices to be able to do that differently going forward. The other thing is that, of course, what we're wanting to do is be able to help people do it differently, in terms of that, you know, they can learn how to ground themselves. They can learn how to use mindfulness. They can learn relaxation. They can learn more adaptive ways of thinking, and learn how to tolerate that anxiety without getting hooked further and further in it and actually escalating it, you know, by freaking out about the fact that they're freaking out. Okay, so there's a whole multitude of things that we can do, and that generally that I would do with a client that first comes in the preparation for the exposure and desensitization that really we need to do to be able to help to extinguish, you know, reduce and extinguish that anxiety response. So we know that avoidance behaviour and safety behaviours, you know, really maintain and perpetuate these issues. You know, we need to do things differently. We need to tackle it in a different way, and that means that when someone is ready, that they have a whole bunch of tools in their tool belt to be able to tolerate the situations very differently. That there's, you know, generally a level of exposure that we need to do when we're dealing with phobic situations. Now, you know, there's different modalities there, different treatments that can be used. In the old days, I used to use systematic desensitization, which works well. It's evidence-based. Just for me personally, nowadays it takes longer, so I use EMDR instead, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and particularly when there's phobic responses that have a traumatic, you know, underpinning. And you know, when we think about needle phobias, a lot of people have had experiences where they're held down and their brain is screaming at them to get out of this really dangerous situation, and they're pinned down often by multiple people. That's pretty scary. And so, you know, I think, yeah, a lot of the time I would be selecting something like EMDR for this, but you know, all clinicians do things differently, and the main thing is that so long as it's an evidence-based treatment, then, you know, and dealing with competent practitioners, that's the most important thing, to be able to get to the end result, which is being able to tolerate being exposed to those situations. So I won't go into everything about EMDR and systematic desensitization now. I mean, if people are really keen, you can certainly let me know and I can go into that, but I am on my way to dinner, and I think we're going to be there fairly soon. So I will keep this fairly brief. But, you know, I think one of the important things to keep in mind is that, you know, you might not be the first lined up there in the morning, you know, with all the other people waiting for the jab. You know, you don't necessarily have to be someone who relishes having a needle, you know, or a vaccination in the future. You know, just like someone who has a phobia of lifts or aeroplanes, you know, they might not ever really enjoy going on a long haul flight, but you know, if we can get them to the point where they're really able to tolerate that, and you know, get from A to B, or get in a lift and go up a lift, or get back into a mall if they've got a phobia about, you know, going into malls or crowds, that's great. Does it have to be their favourite thing? No. But do they need to, would they benefit from learning how to manage anxiety and to keep it at a level so that they can do the things that they choose to do, not plan their life and, you know, try to plan their life around doing those things because they're scary? Then that really gives them choices and options, and it gives them a lot of freedom, and really that's what we're aiming for here. So, you know, looking away when you're having a needle, fine, what's wrong with that? Feeling a bit anxious when you're having a needle, fine, what's wrong with that? You know, not really wanting to go in and do it, but deciding to do it anyway, that's a good thing. It gives you options, gives you choices, and it helps people feel more in control, and as though they're getting their lives back. They're not dictated by what's going on in their head, or by a fear response. They're actually able to make informed choices about what they're doing and how they're doing it. So anyway, a little bit about that. There is hope. I know there's a lot of people out there who are probably going to be feeling pretty freaked out right now about the vaccinations coming up, but there's a lot that can be done. Just because people are freaked out in the past doesn't mean that's how it has to be going forward. You know, there's a lot of hope, and often one of the first things that has to be addressed is that fear that this is not going to work, you know, that I'm always going to be like this, I'll never get over it, this treatment won't work, because those things are roadblocks. But that's all stuff, you know, if you do go in for treatment, that's really good stuff to bring up with a therapist, because, you know, otherwise it can undermine the goals that you're both working on together. Anyway, have a great weekend, everybody. I will see you when I'm back on board for my live stream challenge tomorrow. I think tomorrow is day 7. So almost a quarter of the way there, and it's getting easier. The anxiety is reducing the more I do it. Okay, see you everyone. Have a good night. Bye.